Hey guys, I hope you're all doing well, and in today's video I'm gonna show you how I bring some Ableton Live ideas into VCV Rack. You can ask me why I do that in such big amount of modules. Just because I love both Ableton and VCV, and in VCV you can really expand a technique and the visions, how this amazing device from Ableton Live, especially from Ableton Live, are working. So this patch will be a last one in my video because it shares not an effect technique but a routing technique. The first patch I'm gonna show you is actually my try to copy Ableton AutoPan sample and hold mode. So this is actually using a panner, both of the inputs for the left and right, and there is an output for respective for each other, and then the sample and hold based on Mogma modular is injecting in its CV control, turn it fully on, and then you can do some slew limiting to make the transition to the left and right channel not so spiky, and then you can control both of attenuators by surveillance, and this is actually an amount of effect. So this is pretty simple, and of course you can inject your kind of settings in this setup. You can try to inverse something or add another sample and hold with different clock. For example, let's try this one. But I very like this effect. Really brings the instrument wider left and right separation. It's very fun. So the second one I'm gonna show you, it's based on filter delay. So filter delay device is actually 3-in-1 delay modules, but separated by inputs. Two of them only picked up or left and right inputs, and the third one picked up some of left and right channels. So I do some mapping with a palette, so I make it stereo using a unison. I use Bassmaster for this kind of thing, sum to stereo, and then provide left input for the first chronoblob delay, right for the second, and the final taking as sum of polyphonic channel and apply it to the third chronoblob. Also, very important thing in filter delay is actually filter and capacitor do especially nice filter slopes, and you can adjust each of chronoblob very precisely. And the last one important thing in filter delay is routing in stereo fields, so you can apply. Let's just bring down this octo modulation. You can apply some panning. You can hear now we actually getting a white stereo bass, and you can apply also a dry signal. So let's play with palette a bit to get the effect, hear the effect properly. So I love this filter controls. It gives your image very special for making a lush sound, but also with a dry channel, and it's actually pretty easy to build, so I hope you will like it to use. So the next one is a velocity randomizer control. Okay, let's mute this for a moment, just because it's a bit complex. So in Ableton you can find a velocity device when you can apply a random control of input nodes. So each input node will have a different velocity in preferred range. So in this case of getting random source, I use a triggered random for VCV and just put it into VCA through the attenuator, and in this case a shaper, just because velocity device in Ableton Live has a compressor control, such kind of weird thing that only Ableton should know what about exactly it is. But I just make some experimentation and found the shaper can do really nice experimental thing. So let me mute key drum. So in this case, random shape, random voltage for random module is shaped by the shaper. Let me show you on the scope what's going on exactly. So this wave we are getting from the shaper, from the random, and this wave we're getting actually from shaper. So you can see those wave shaper things. Also don't forget to set it to DC, otherwise it won't work. We can also bring some interesting compression results of incoming random voltage by applying a gain, choosing the different shaper effect can really crush this stuff, and we get some clicking. And this attenuator is actually of control what amount of range we could make a random. And the pretty nice thing about VCV, it has a different VCA, and I got this switch to this voltage control applied by Volt, and this is made analog-like stuff, so you can really hear the difference. It brings some distortion as well. Here's the different modules. You can really continue experiment with the shaper, and I found the folder is a pretty nice tool. Somehow I set this slew limiter, but it will make your random voltage a bit slower if you want, of course. For the no such random thing, just a bit, as you can see on this VCA. But this folder stuff, I think it's a new level of getting randomized velocity stuff in VCV Rack. So let's move to the next technique. It is based on erosion effect. So I found in manual of Ableton Live that erosion is based on modulating the delay by noise or sine wave to apply some aliasing effects. And in this case I found the best delay in VCV Rack by Studio 6 is actually Carpal's strong delay. So in this Carpal's strong delay is actually the idea of the erosion. but the noise and the sine wave here bring such kind of digital distortion effects inside your incoming signal. So here is a mix control, and if you set this tune like that, in feedback like that, now we are actually in sine wave mode. You can experimenting with this VCO by disabling the linear slope. It's pretty similar to erosion effects in Ableton, and I found it's pretty unique stuff. So like that, and the noise is actually passed through the stairway 4P bandpass filter. So it's kind of applying some weird noisy stuff to make it more old school. I don't know. Just with a bit of texture. So this is another technique I found is pretty useful to use in VCV Rack. So the next one is Ableton delay stuff that came from a Live 10 version. So it's based on delay, and the heart is of course a chronoblob in this case. And I found the modulation stuff below the manipulating window, filter window, is pretty useful. So actually this time let me remove the freeze control. So this is pretty interesting thing. Modulation is can control time aspect of the delay. So I pass it through the second output of 8 Hz. And for my sense, the source wave of modulation is kind of slow square waves, and Octo is actually generating it for us. And it can also control the filter. In this case I use a capacitor, which is similar to the filter delay section I showed you before. This actually don't need now. You can actually circuit bend this filter by applying some dry wet modulation, the feedback, and regarding the feedback I have a same option, nearly the same option as in original Ableton device. And when you applied this infinity button, you can actually remove input from your source in delay and apply a feedback into the infinity stuff, just like that. Beware your levels, please. But those effects are pretty interesting, especially when you switch to the time modulation mode, because this time continues to modulate. So you can get really weird effects in that way. And the loop section, you can just again circuit bending this delay to get some granular kind of stuff, which is pretty interesting. So it was Ableton delay. Try to replica like. And the next technique is a noise vocoder input. So in the carrier input of Ableton's vocoder you can set a noise, oscillator, source, and then if you provide some signal through it, this would be applying above the noise to get some kind of texture noisy stuff. And in the case of using it in VCV, I just bring some different vocoders here from Bidu, from Vocoder and from Frozen Wasteland, and patch it a bit different, so the sync is actually injecting the carrier from the noise. By modulation source I use the palette, but for PEQ I use the noise for modulating this bandwidth for the filters, which can generate pretty weird stuff. Also, I use only odd output, which is pretty nice in use of bandwidth control, and got some drawing of these filters to get the texture I want. And the Frozen Wasteland, I just use some kind of random settings with the band offset control. Didn't touch gain. Trying to make attack decay a bit above, and in that way I get this kind of texture, which is pretty different and depends on the modulation source. As you can see, if I selecting a different source in the palette, it's changing. It's changing almost everything, especially in dynamic domain, and a bit of frequency as well. So that was vocoder technique. And the last one, the patch I showed you in the start of this video. So this patch based on the idea that in Ableton Live you can bring 4 MIDI outputs to one instrument, synthesizer. So in that way I just bring 4 different sequencers: Detroit, modular, clocked random gates and permutation. Then I use this polyphonic merge inputs. Sorry, I didn't use the clocked random gates, it's for another one. So I used 3 sequencers here and merge it into the 23 volts merge, and then passed it all through the polyphonic quantizer by Bidu, and then apply it to the palette and apply a different clock based on the mu graph to each sequencer, so you can get those rhythms are pretty different, and it's pretty nice. You can apply some modulation to the oscillator, and it would apply for all sequences at once. And it's pretty fun actually to patching, to find a balance in sequencers, so you probably will have put a lot of your time to finding a perfect sequencers for each voice, but in the end you can get such kind of semi-random, because I used permutation in non-cycle controls over time, and just a few repeatable things by Modular and Detroit. And then I use the strip to copy my first settings here and just apply different mode in palette, particular noise, to get this semi-random percussion stuff. So that was my technique on how to bring some ideas from Ableton Live effects and routing, so you can get all of this stuff as usual on my Patreon. And thank you for watching, guys, and see you next time.